The room was silent except for the hum of the projector. Mrs. Cassandra Bell, the TikTok famous teacher adored by her students and followed by thousands online, stood frozen at the center of the classroom. Her face, which had always been bright and animated during her viral videos, was now pale. Across the room, 14-year-old Emily Carter clutched her arm, her voice trembling as she said, "You hit me." The other students gasped, their wide-eyed expressions capturing the moment's shock. It was as if time had stopped. Cassandra's fingers twitched, her breath quickening as she struggled to respond. She looked at Emily, then at the horrified faces of the students who were already recording the scene on their phones. One of them whispered, "Is this for real?" Cassandra's lips parted, but no words came out. The classroom door creaked open, and Principal Howard stepped in. His eyes darted between Emily and Cassandra, and then, with a firm voice, he asked, "What's going on here?" The air felt heavy with tension. Cassandra, still frozen, didn't answer. Emily's soft sobs filled the silence as Principal Howard narrowed his gaze. The story didn't start here. A few weeks earlier, Mrs. Bell was at the peak of her fame. She was known as the TikTok teacher, who used funny dances and catchy skits to make learning fun. Her students adored her, and parents praised her creative methods. It wasn't unusual to see students staying late in her classroom to work on projects or help her with new TikTok videos. Emily, a shy but talented student, had been one of Cassandra's favorites. Emily had been featured in several of Cassandra's videos, and her classmates often teased her about becoming famous. At first, she didn't mind. Cassandra's playful nature and energy seemed genuine. However, things started to change when Emily began to feel pressured to participate in the videos. "Come on, Emily. You're my star. Don't ruin the vibe," Cassandra had said one afternoon when Emily hesitated to perform a dance. Emily forced a smile and went along with it, but something in her stomach felt wrong. Weeks passed, and Emily started avoiding Cassandra's classroom after school. Her friends noticed but didn't say much. One day, during a lesson on the Civil War, Cassandra called Emily out for not paying attention. "Maybe if you spent less time daydreaming, you'd actually learn something," she snapped. The comment stung, and Emily's face turned red as the class giggled. Cassandra's demeanor changed after that. She wasn't the fun, bubbly teacher anymore. She became more critical of Emily's work, making sly remarks that other students picked up on. The tension reached its peak during an after-school filming session. Cassandra was trying to choreograph a new dance, but Emily struggled to keep up. Frustrated, Cassandra grabbed Emily's arm to reposition her. "Do you even care about this?" Cassandra hissed under her breath. Emily flinched and pulled away. "I don't want to do this anymore," Emily said softly. The classroom fell silent as Cassandra's face darkened. She stepped closer, her voice sharp. "You think you can just quit after everything I've done for you?" Emily froze, her heart racing. Cassandra's grip tightened for a moment before she let go and stormed out of the room. The following day, Emily came to school with a bruise on her arm. When her best friend, Madison, noticed it, she pressed Emily for answers. "What happened?" Madison asked. Emily hesitated but eventually told her everything. Madison's jaw dropped. "You have to tell someone," she urged. Emily shook her head. "No one will believe me. She's their favorite." But Madison didn't listen. She went straight to the school counselor, Mrs. Harris, who called Emily in for a meeting. That meeting led to an investigation, and soon Principal Howard was informed. Cassandra was called in for a private discussion, but she denied everything. "It's a misunderstanding," she insisted, her voice calm but her hands trembling. "Emily is a sensitive kid. Maybe she misunderstood my intentions." That brings us back to the fateful day in the classroom when Emily finally confronted Cassandra. Principal Howard escorted both of them to his office, leaving the students buzzing with rumors. As Emily sat outside the principal's office, her hands shaking, she wondered if she had done the right thing. Inside, Cassandra pleaded her case, But the weight of her growing TikTok fame began to work against her. Parents, teachers, and even students began to question whether Cassandra's focus on social media had crossed a line. Just as Principal Howard was about to make a decision, the school doors burst open. 2 police officers walked in, their faces stern. They were here to ask questions. Questions that could change everything. The revelation of Cassandra's resignation sent shockwaves through the community. Students, parents, and staff were divided. While some believed Emily's story, others couldn't reconcile the allegations with the charismatic and fun-loving teacher they thought they knew. But as investigators dug deeper into Cassandra's past, a chilling pattern began to emerge. A former student, now an adult, came forward anonymously, claiming Cassandra had displayed similar behavior years ago at a different school. She was charming at first, but she had a dark side, the former student told the local news. If you didn't fall in line with her way of doing things, she could be cruel. I remember how she once humiliated me in front of the whole class because I wasn't comfortable being in one of her skits. The school where this alleged incident occurred was contacted for records, but Cassandra had left abruptly before any formal complaints could be filed. It was enough to raise eyebrows. The investigators began piecing together a timeline of Cassandra's teaching career, uncovering a string of short tenures at multiple schools, each ending with vague explanations for her departures. Meanwhile, Emily's life had taken a different turn. Though she had the support of her parents and a few close friends, the online backlash was taking a toll. Comments accusing her of exaggeration or seeking attention piled up on social media. Strangers dissected every aspect of her life, and Emily couldn't help but read the cruel words. Her father, Michael, noticed the change in her demeanor. "Emily, you don't need to look at those comments," he said one evening as they sat together in the living room. Emily shrugged, but her eyes betrayed her hurt. "I didn't want any of this, Dad. I just wanted her to stop. Now everyone hates me." At the same time, Cassandra wasn't faring much better. Reporters camped outside her house, her once beloved TikTok videos were flooded with negative comments, and her former fans turned against her. But Cassandra wasn't ready to back down quietly. She hired a lawyer and prepared to make a public statement. On a cold Monday morning, Cassandra appeared in front of the cameras for the first time since the allegations broke. Dressed in a modest navy blouse, her face was composed, but her voice wavered as she spoke. "These accusations are deeply hurtful and untrue," she began. "I have always been passionate about teaching and connecting with my students. I never intended to cause harm, and I hope the truth will come out." But just as she finished her statement, the unexpected happened. A woman stepped forward from the crowd of reporters, holding a folder filled with documents. Her name was Lisa Chapman, and she introduced herself as Cassandra's former colleague from one of her earlier teaching jobs. "I've been quiet for too long," Lisa said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "I saw what she did to students at our school. It's time someone spoke up." The room erupted in chaos as reporters bombarded Lisa with questions, but the documents she held quickly became the focal point. They contained detailed complaints filed by parents and students during Cassandra's previous employment, alleging emotional manipulation, favoritism, and inappropriate behavior. Though no physical assault was mentioned, the allegations painted a troubling picture of someone who thrived on control and adoration, often at the expense of her students. The revelations rocked the investigation. Emily's parents, who had been hesitant about pursuing legal action, decided to file a formal complaint with the school district and law enforcement, bolstered by the new evidence. Principal Howard, now under fire for his handling of the situation, called an emergency meeting with staff and parents to address the growing crisis. Emily sat quietly in her room that evening, watching the news coverage of Cassandra's public statement and Lisa's bombshell revelation. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, some supportive, others vicious. She was tired of the spotlight, but a small part of her felt vindicated. For the first time, people were beginning to see the cracks in Cassandra's perfect persona. But as the investigation moved forward, a startling discovery threatened to upend everything. Investigators uncovered a deleted TikTok video from Cassandra's account, a video in which she had inadvertently captured herself berating Emily during a practice session. The audio was muffled, but the words were clear enough to raise alarm. "You'll never amount to anything if you don't listen to me," Cassandra's voice rang out. The video had only been live for a short time before being taken down, but someone had saved it and submitted it as evidence. The video was enough to warrant a deeper dive into Cassandra's digital footprint. What they found was a shocking series of private messages sent to Emily through a classroom app. The messages alternated between encouragement and thinly veiled threats, painting a troubling picture of manipulation. As these revelations came to light, the community's support for Emily grew, but so did the questions. How had Cassandra managed to hide her behavior for so long? And more importantly, what else might she be hiding? The investigation wasn't over yet, and it seemed that the most shocking secrets were still to come. The discovery of Cassandra's deleted TikTok video and private messages sent shockwaves through the community. Parents began to question the school's vetting process for teachers, and former students flooded social media with stories of their experiences under Cassandra's watch. While some were harmless anecdotes about her quirky teaching methods, others were far more disturbing, hinting at a long-standing pattern of emotional manipulation and control. The police investigation intensified as they subpoenaed Cassandra's digital records. What they uncovered left even seasoned investigators stunned. Hidden in a forgotten cloud backup were recordings Cassandra had made of her classroom interactions. Most were innocuous, seemingly meant for her TikTok skits, but a few revealed her at her worst, berating students, making cruel comments, and even mocking some of them behind their backs. One recording, in particular, stood out. It featured Cassandra arguing with Emily during a practice session. Her tone was icy as she said, "Do you even realize how much I've done for you? Without me, you're nothing." Emily's voice, barely audible, responded, "I didn't ask for this." The recording cut off abruptly, but the damage was done. The audio quickly leaked online, sparking outrage and a renewed wave of support for Emily. Meanwhile, Cassandra's lawyer struggled to keep up with the mounting evidence against her. In a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, Cassandra agreed to a televised interview. Sitting across from a seasoned journalist, she tried to paint herself as the victim of a smear campaign. "I've dedicated my life to teaching," Cassandra said, her voice trembling. "Yes, I'm strict, but it's because I care. Emily was like a daughter to me, and this entire situation has been blown out of proportion. I'm being crucified in the court of public opinion based on misunderstandings and lies." But the journalist didn't let her off easily. "What about the recordings, the messages, and the testimony of your former colleague, Lisa Chapman?" he asked pointedly. Cassandra's face tightened, and for a moment, she appeared at a loss for words. "Those are taken out of context," she finally said. "They don't represent who I am." The interview aired that night, and while some sympathized with Cassandra's plight, the majority weren't convinced. The recordings and evidence spoke louder than her carefully crafted words. As the legal case against Cassandra built momentum, Emily's family prepared for what was coming. Michael, Emily's father, sat her down one evening to talk. "This is going to get harder before it gets better," he said gently. "The trial, the media, it's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone someone your age. But I need you to know how proud we are of you." Emily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I just want it to be over, Dad," she whispered. But it was far from over. Days later, a stunning development turned the case on its head. Investigators discovered a series of bank transactions linking Cassandra to a private mentorship program she had been running off the books. Parents of former students revealed that Cassandra had pressured them to pay for one-on-one coaching sessions for their children, promising it would help them succeed academically. Some of these sessions were legitimate, but others were clearly exploitative, with parents describing their children coming home in tears after being berated during the so-called mentorship. The revelation led to a full-scale financial audit of Cassandra's activities, uncovering thousands of dollars in unreported income. The school district, already under fire for failing to catch her behavior earlier, now faced a major scandal of its own. How had Cassandra been able to operate unchecked for so long? Cassandra's lawyer immediately issued a statement denying any wrongdoing, claiming the mentorship program was entirely voluntary. But public sentiment had turned decisively against her. The media dubbed her the TikTok teacher with a dark side, and every new revelation seemed to deepen her fall from grace. Amid the chaos, Emily tried to find some sense of normalcy. But even at school, she couldn't escape the whispers and stares. Some students avoided her, afraid of being dragged into the controversy. Others offered quiet words of support, but the tension was palpable. One day, as Emily walked through the hallway, she found a note tucked into her locker. It read, "You're brave. Don't let her win." The note gave Emily a small glimmer of hope, but her resolve was tested yet again when Cassandra made an unexpected move. She filed a countersuit against the school district and Emily's family, claiming defamation and emotional distress. The announcement sent shockwaves through the community, reigniting debates about who was truly at fault. As the legal battles heated up, the police made one final, shocking discovery. Buried in Cassandra's personal emails was a draft of a book she had been writing, an autobiography titled Behind the Curtain. In it, she described her rise to TikTok fame and her unorthodox teaching methods, but one chapter stood out. Titled, Breaking the Rules, it detailed how she believed strict discipline and manipulation were necessary to push students to their full potential. The manuscript, though unpublished, became a centerpiece of the investigation, raising serious questions about Cassandra's mindset and intentions. It seemed clear that she had crossed the line between discipline and abuse, but the full truth had yet to come to light. With the trial looming, everyone wondered, what other secrets might still be hidden, and would Emily find the justice she deserved? The trial began with the courtroom packed, reporters crammed into every available space, their cameras ready to capture the drama. Emily sat quietly next to her parents, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across the room, Cassandra maintained her composure, dressed in a simple black blazer, her lawyer by her side. Despite the mounting evidence against her, she appeared unshaken, determined to salvage her reputation. The prosecution presented their case meticulously, laying out the recordings, messages, financial discrepancies, and witness testimonies. Emily's voice trembled as she took the stand, recounting the events that had led to that fateful day. The courtroom hung on her every word, and by the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Cassandra's defense focused on painting her as a misunderstood teacher whose methods, while unconventional, were rooted in a genuine desire to help her students succeed. Her lawyer argued that the recordings and messages lacked context and insisted the financial allegations were a smear campaign orchestrated by disgruntled parents. But Cassandra's defense began to crumble when Lisa Chapman took the stand. Lisa's testimony was damning, as she described years of Cassandra's manipulative behavior and how she had avoided accountability by leaving schools before formal complaints could be filed. The draft of Behind the Curtain was introduced as evidence, and its contents left the jury visibly uncomfortable. The turning point came when the prosecution revealed their final piece of evidence, a sworn statement from a former parent who had paid thousands of dollars for Cassandra's mentorship program. The parent described how Cassandra had not only berated their child but also threatened to withdraw her academic recommendations if they stopped paying. When the defense rested, Cassandra herself took the stand. Her performance was calculated, but cracks in her story began to show under cross-examination. She faltered when asked about the messages to Emily and struggled to explain the financial irregularities. Her polished demeanor gave way to frustration, and her insistence on her innocence began to sound hollow. The jury deliberated for 2 days before reaching a verdict. Cassandra was found guilty of emotional abuse, fraud, and professional misconduct. Though the court ruled there was insufficient evidence to convict her of physical assault, the damage to her career and reputation was irreversible. She was sentenced to community service and required to repay the families she had defrauded. For Emily, the verdict brought a sense of relief but also a lingering sadness. She had stood up for herself and exposed the truth, but the experience had left scars she would carry for years. Her parents assured her that she was stronger for having faced the ordeal, and her schoolmates began to see her not as the girl who accused her teacher but as someone who had the courage to speak out. Cassandra disappeared from public life after the trial. Her TikTok account was deactivated, her videos scrubbed from the platform. Occasionally, whispers about her new life would surface, rumors of her working under a new name in another state, but she would never regain the fame or influence she once wielded. Months later, Emily received another note in her locker. This one simply read, "Thank you for standing up for us. You're a hero." She smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Though the scars of the experience remained, Emily had found her voice, and with it, the strength to move forward. As the story comes to a close, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this shocking case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this gripping tale and want more crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And remember, every story we share has a lesson.